Oh my
Oh,
god, he takes with the E
ED.
pawn. I wasn't even thinking about the E
ED.
pawn because it's
Look at the way
yeah.
his pieces are in such perfect harmony. It's like a symphony of each piece fulfilling a very specific role.
Get ready to watch Magnus Carlsen, a master of his craft, the chess conductor, orchestrate his pieces towards a sublime crescendo in this game against Wesley So. This is the Speed Chess Championship semi-finals. It's the 5+3 portion of the match, and Wesley kicks off here with pawn to b3. The Nimzo Larsen attack. Now Wesley already down in the match, looking to mix it up a bit. So e5 from Magnus, bishop b2 attacks that pawn, the knight covers, and now e3, knight f6, and bishop b5 immediately pressures the knight and threatens to win a pawn. And the defense of that pawn looks really weird. Bishop d6, but it is the top theoretical move here. And the idea being, I guess, I don't know all the theory here, if you go d6, it's obviously deemed a bit passive. So how's Magnus going to unravel? Well, knight a3 is first played by Wesley. More weird looking chess, putting the knight on the edge of the board. But it's threatening to come to c4, shatter the pawn structure here. So Magnus, in response, plays knight a5. Top move. This is some weird looking opening chess. This is modern chess and it only gets weirder. So this prevents knight to c4, of course, and now bishop e2. Why would you underdevelop the bishop? Well, the idea seems to be knight b5, again going after this one, and then the pawn. So a6 from Magnus stops that knight from hopping, and now c4 from Wesley, a more conventional move. So the knight's not coming there anymore, but watch how it remaneuvers. So castle's played and knight c2. Now it looks a bit passive, but it does have ideas of re-entering the game later. If a well-timed d4 comes, well then the knight could hop into the game. So rook e8 played by Magnus, playing against this d4 move. Not actually good for white to play it immediately, because after pawn captures, you activate a lot of black pieces as well as the white pieces, so not technically best. d3 played. c5 now from Magnus. I mean, if you walked past this board, right, and you didn't know the ELO of the players, you'd be thinking they were, low-rated players, right? Ugly looking pawns, this one standing in front here, development issues, knight on the edge of the board, and now Wesley, he goes g4, more crazy looking chess, going for this attack, and it's the best computer move. So this knight is about to get driven off the board. It doesn't even have a single square to hop to where it won't be captured. So Magnus goes rook to f8, underdevelops his rook. This is just some crazy modern chess theory, right? So g5 played, the knight does find a square, and although Magnus looks a bit passive, well, Wesley's pushing pawns, it does leave weaknesses behind, and this knight does have a circuit it can go on to re-enter the game. So knight f3 played, pressures that pawn, knight c6 covers, and now Wesley misses his moment to strike. So this was the point at which he should have played d4, because the rook's no longer on e8, the knight's been driven back, and if this and pawn captures and e4, which you do have to be mindful of, well, after knight d2, one of the key things here is black doesn't have d5, whereupon they'd get a good game. So Wesley, though, he doesn't go d4, he goes rook g1, just seems to be lacking a plan a bit, because now bishop c7 from Magnus, he begins to unravel, and d5 is a threat here, such a threat that Wesley actually goes e4 to play against it, but not the best move. And d4, by the way, isn't working so well anymore, because at the end of the lines, black gets a quick d5 with a good game. Won't go down that rabbit hole. Now, what should Wesley have done? We'll just wait it according to the engine. Queen d2 or knight d2, bishop f1. Different ideas, not so easy for the white plan to just play itself. So Wesley does go e4, stops d5, but look at these nasty dark squared weaknesses. And watch how Magnus just now moves the pieces around the board to take advantage. So he starts with check. No bishop c3, of course, so the king slides to f1. And now here, there is a threat of moving this pawn, which Magnus does to d6. He could have even gone to d5 because of this threat of bishop h3 check. The king can't move back, and so you actually win an exchange after the rook blocks with rook g2. So an immediate d5 there, a very interesting move. But it's not clear if that's good for black loads. I mean, the computer says a bit better, but white gets a lot of compensation. But d6 played, rook g3 now stops bishop h3, and knight c7. Look at the circuit this knight is now on. So knight e3 played, so that after knight e6, eyeing this square, you can go knight d5 covering, but now knight e7 from Magnus. Simple stuff. Remove the defender of the square and then hop in. And of course white would love to support this knight here, but you just can't go on this journey in time to do so. So what does Wesley do? Well, he goes h4, reinforcing this pawn, maybe going for a kind of pseudo attack here, but Magnus, he's just rumbling through into the position so much faster. And Wesley now already just gets really concerned about this knight, drops back the bishop, top engine move, but f5 from Magnus. All of his pieces now just flowing into the position. And if you capture here, a move which you were maybe threatening to play, well, it's no good, because after pawn recaptures, wherever the rook drops to, g2, g1, doesn't matter, there's pawn takes here, recaptures, and bishop check. And once again, this piece stops the king retreating. You have to give up an exchange. And obviously, if the rook was already on that square, well, you'd already be winning the exchange. So taking this one, just not good. So king g1 tried, coming away from that light square diagonal of the bishop. Magnus rips open the position anyway. Pawn recaptures, and now a real cool, calm move. You can already go bishop c3, hit the rook, remaneuver into here. But Magnus goes bishop d7, just connecting pieces, developing into the game. Bishop e3 from Wesley, now bishop c3, picks up a tempo on the rook, and the bishop hits d4. And look at that dark squared grip. And after bishop f1, trying some defense, queen e7. This is where I had some fun drawing some paint on the board for the thumbnail. Look at the way the dark squared control is just dominating the white position. So beautiful. And now Wesley, just sick of his position, down on the clock by over a minute. What to do here? I mean, the computer says knight h2 or try and chuck a pawn with b4. But Wesley takes here, fed up of this dark squared grip, but it doesn't help his position. And now this is where we get the response from the commentary team after Magnus doesn't take with the c-pawn, capturing towards the centre, which is often more natural, leaving this one to support the outpost, but playing e-takes on d4 instead.
Oh my god, he takes with the e-pawn. I wasn't even thinking about the e-pawn because it's... And he just opens up the e-file.
Wow.
It's so funny how that's the obvious move, but like a little bit counterintuitive to the first
Totally.
eye meets brain, right?
Danny, taking away from the center. Why? Because the queen on e7. Look at the way his pieces are in such perfect harmony. It's like a symphony of each piece fulfilling a very specific role.
So the guys in the commentary studio just loving the way Magnus constantly adapts to what's going on in the position, breaks the rules of thumb at the right moment. So the bishop now takes here, rook recaptures, but now two pawns are hit. What to do? Wesley goes for some tricks with queen to h5. His idea being, if you take here, well, I've got bishop d3, you open the diagonal. This is still actually good for black. You can flick in g6, kick the queen, win the rook and everything. But anyway, Magnus, having none of it, he just goes rook a f8, doesn't touch the pawns yet, puts tons of pressure on f2. Wesley ignores the f2 pawn, still goes bishop d3, hoping that Magnus takes here and he can go e5 and look for tricks. Still better for black, but why allow it? So Magnus goes queen e5, just shutting down the counterplay, miserable bad bishop, and after rook g2, covering the pawn, excuse me, Wesley so just resigns the position, doesn't even wait for Magnus to make a move. It's almost -10 in terms of the advantage to black. So many nice ideas. Bishop e8, bishop h3 and back to g4. You can even crash through on f2 here, because after rook captures, there's queen g3 check. Yes, the rook can block, but then you check here, and now not even winning the rook is best, but after the king steps up, there's rook f3. You're threatening checkmate, and the best way to stop that, I mean basically the only way, is queen takes, giving up the queen, still an overwhelmingly lost position. So what a game by Magnus Carlsen. This was the final position. Now the game's still going, it's quite late here in the UK, but he is just crushing Wesley right now. I hope you enjoyed this one. Do see the video on screen for another epic game of chess, and I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.